broadcast there. Right, so people are starting to enter. We'll give them time to enter. We'll ask them to get it. And what I'm going to do is,
Hi everybody, the talk selfie.
I didn't say.
It's fine.
Just so you guys know, we're at about, the last time I checked, we had about 80 people registered to sign in. So Hamza, thanks, dude. I mean, you pulled in like 35-ish through the panel, which is really good. And then we did really well. Just through word of mouth, got quite a few in the end. Thanks, Zach, for that. A couple of reposts and stuff worked really well. I think
probably the only one watching.
It's all my family, mate. It's all these Patels. You don't even understand how many Patels are sitting on there just put it on and muted it in the background. All right, so the interesting thing is, I don't know now if they know we are going. How interesting is that? So it doesn't actually tell you that. So obviously I'm new to Zoom, and now we're broadcasting, so everyone knows what's going on. Let's give it a few more minutes. Let's see who...
45 people so far.
No, so 37, including us 9.
Yeah.
So going to give it a few more minutes. Just let everyone get in. I'm just going to mute you guys and just stick it on to presenter mode so that these guys are only seeing. So I muted everyone, and then Brian has unmuted himself. There we go. Everyone's muted, and Brian is still the person who is up. There we go. Everyone is muted. Everyone is sitting there. We are sitting there in speaker view. We have 38 people still. Going to give it a couple of minutes, give everyone a bit of time to warm up, and then we'll do a bit of an introduction. Say hello, introduce what we're doing. I want to introduce the panel, and we will go from there. So hit go live. So that is it. There we go. Facebook is running. Facebook runs about 20 seconds slower than the rest of the stream. So if you are watching on Facebook, then you may find that you are a little bit stuck. I'm wondering if some of the people who have signed up may have actually signed up from different countries, and therefore might have got a bit stuck with the timing of it. And I'm going to randomly show up in the middle of the night and be a little bit lost. So let's give it a couple more minutes and then we'll get it going. My wife is here. She's looking from the side. I don't know why she has done that. So Pam can't get in. Let's have a look. Close that. And interesting.
And you're going to need to explain the background to everyone again once this starts.
I'm going to have to. Right. Let me just have a quick look. For some reason, we're having some people who are struggling to get into the room, and I'm not sure what's going on there. Open that up. And Brian, I know your Pam's in contact with you. There we go. We're up to 55. So let's get to 60, guys, and we'll go from there. And for Zach, smile, mate. You're on screen. For some reason, it picked you out. And oh, I'm gonna go. There we go. I got rid of you. There you go.
Thanks.
And you are still there. So this is. So Zoom is. Oh, you know what? Sod it. I'm gonna put everyone up. I don't care. This is just easy. I don't want everyone just looking at my ugly mug for the rest of the evening. So. Going to start this little show. It's 55 people. Majority of people are in. And firstly, I just want to thank everyone who's been able to come and join us. This event came up with an idea that I had at the end of last year, where I thought we'd go and see students and tell them, honestly about realistic optometry. Optometry schools are fantastic. They teach optometry really well. But sometimes I think they miss out on what happens in the real world. And once you're in the real world, it's not necessarily quite that rose-tinted view that you get, you know, while you're studying, depending on what environment you get in and learning aspects and things like that that you pick out. So as part of that, I thought, well, actually, so what happens if you don't enjoy testing? Or what if you want to try something different from testing, where you're not sat in a room, in a dark room with no windows, seeing X number of patients a day? What if that doesn't appeal to you? So optometry and optics is quite a big field. And there are other areas within the profession that you can branch into, which mean that you do get to stay outside of the testing room, maybe still do some testing, maybe not do any testing at all. And so I'm really, really happy and really proud that I've managed to get a fantastic panel together of basically my friends, and we're going to sit here and shoot the shit about what journeys they've taken in the profession to keep themselves interested. Now, depending on how you are looking at this, either at the top or the bottom of your screen, there is a question and answer button. So there is no chat on this. There is a question and answer button. And what you can do is you can, at any point, ask the question. Now, the nice thing about Zoom is that if you ask the question and if someone else asks a question and you like it or you want to ask the same question, you can click on it to say, I like that, and it will push the question up and down the order. So we're going to try and answer all the questions. There is a time limit, mainly because, you know, Zach is almost at midnight and may want to sleep at some point. Karen is in Canada and kids may want to get fed at some point. And so I will try and cut it off at the thing. So the first question I seem to have is that, and I think actually everyone can, all the panel can see the questions. So I just saw something just popped up that said Rachel is struggling to, oh, from Indy. So actually the panel is, so Rachel's struggling to join. So I don't know, Indy. I can't understand. Maybe ask her to exit out and then come back in again. Pam was struggling to join earlier. And Brian, is Pam in now? Yeah, okay, cool. So just a few house rules. Most questions are acceptable. The only thing I'm going to ask that we don't talk about is the apprenticeship, because that is just polarizing. And I already see Don smiling. I see Khaled shaking his head. And so that is a whole beast that I really don't want to address. So it's my party. No apprenticeship questions. And also, I want it to be positive. So what I really don't want is bashing, okay? I don't care who you work for, where you work. The idea of this is not to bash, it's to take positivity out of it, okay? So, like I said, questions are at the bottom. We already have 2 questions. Oh, here we go. Let's see what they are. And it's a good one there. So we've got a couple. First one here is, I'll get to the questions after, but at least I know you guys know how to do it. I was going to put a question up about Brian's moustache, and is that a yay or a nay? But you guys are pretty positive here. So I'm going to start off. I'm going to introduce the panel, and we're going to start off. I'm going to unmute everyone now, because I just can't be dealing with muting people and unmuting people. So feel free to mute yourself if your wife's going to make you a cup of tea, or if the kettle's going to go off, or if Brian's being shouted at for not doing whatever Brian's meant to be doing now. All right, so we're going to start off. And first of all, I would like to introduce Brian. Brian is my colleague, my business partner now, and a fellow director at the world famous Tomkins Knight & Son optometrist. And Brian, over to you, buddy.
Why am I still in optometry after 45 years of loving this profession? I don't know. I don't know how to do anything else. If I died and went to heaven and could come back again, I'd do the same again. I don't see any reason to not love what we do. We're helping people. We're making them cry, happy tears because we get them to see. We're playing with technology and toys because we're Tech Practice of the Year this year. We're playing with contact lenses, so we get to poke people in the eye. So we're kind of Contact Lens Practice of the Year proposed for this year when the Optician Awards come back around again. We hit their faces and restyle them in full fashion, so we give them a brand new look. How can that not be a positive, uplifting thing for us to do on a constant day-to-day basis? So if you don't love optometry, you're in the wrong profession, bugger off, go somewhere else and do something else. So that will do for me.
Do you want to tell us maybe something about yourself that people might not know, Brian? I know everyone knows most things about you, mate, because you're not exactly shy. But something that you would consider favorite about yourself, something like that?
Cooking, I guess, a bit. I did the old MasterChef back in many, many moons ago, got through to the final. But that was about precision and dedication, and it was about attention to detail. And every aspect of what we do in optometry is identical. So any optometrist who says they can't cook is wrong, because if they put the same thinking and procedure into putting something together on the table, everybody can cook.
Thank you very much. That was nice and straightforward. So what I did was I made a few lists, and next on the list, we're going to go alphabetical. So, Don, you're up.
My name is Don. Optometry wasn't really my first degree. I did physics first, and I did that in Paris. Then I came over to the UK to do optometry. And like Brian said, it's a passion. It's not a job. For me, it's a hobby. And yeah, I love it. So yeah, I don't think I've got a lot more to say than it's a brilliant profession. So
for the panel, for the audience, Don, where are you based?
In Birmingham, in Edgbaston. I'm not far from the Botanical Gardens. Right.
And because I know you and these guys don't, why don't you just share a little bit more about what kind of practice you do?
Obviously I don't do a lot of refraction. I don't sell glasses. I don't sell soft lenses. So it's a non-retail practice. I'm not I'm not part of the GOS scheme. So it's a completely private practice with no retail aspect to it. So it's purely clinical. So that's essential. And my practice is not on the high street. It's in a medical building in Edgbaston. So I lease a room in a medical building, and there are various private clinicians in that building. So I think Brian will remember. I don't know if Brian can remember Roper Hall. Can Brian remember Roper Hall?
Not off the top of my head, but then this brain's falling apart now.
That's fine. He was a very famous eye specialist, and he used to live in that building where my practice is. I actually saw him last year. He's 95 now and still going strong. So the room where my practice is based has always been the eye room. It's been the eye room for the past 60 years. So yeah, it's a non-retail, non-high street, non-GOS practice.
Can I just
go on, Brian?
Make a small point? Technically, one of the reasons that we love what we do is that we are able to provide a clinical service for our patients. Fully agree. But ultimately, we kind of retail, but actually what we're doing is serving our patients.
Brian, I'm going to cut you off because otherwise we won't get through it. Yeah, and you're going to be the person I mute the first, because I know how you like to chip in. That's why I did mention at the beginning in the pre-brief, Brian. Let's not drag this out too much. All right, thank you. Up next we have Hamza, up in the north.
Hi, so yeah, Hamza. Crazy optom to most people, as you would say. I'm an optometrist for Specsavers in Kendal in the Lake District, so way up north in the nice country, but yeah. Fairly new compared to most people here, besides Zach. So obviously qualified in 2016, pre-registered in 2017. and now lead optometrist for Specsavers in Kendal. But outside of that, obviously, I'm most known for social media. And with that, it's posting stuff that I see in clinic. So it's more, it led from a passion for photography and obviously seeing cool stuff in clinic than what you see on the account today. And then from there, it branched into pre-reg training and newly qualified training as well.
Fantastic. And actually, that in, I'm going to just take a quick break there from the intros, mainly because that answers the first, that gives me a good segue into the first question. So the first question that we had was, how important do we as a group, and I'm going to start with Hamza because he brought it up, do you think social media is in optometry?
It's more from a business point of view, more than anything nowadays. Social media marketing is more powerful than more traditional forms of advertising we may have used in the past. And from my point of view, it's about reaching people. So obviously, especially, well, should I say my generation, we all use social media, we're all on it constantly. So for me, it was just an outlet to showcase what I was seeing. I never expected it to grow, but especially in this day and age now, Instagram is probably one of the biggest marketing tools you have available to you, but also can be used as an education tool too, because there's a lot of ophthalmologists on Instagram, a lot of optometrists who showcase stuff. And I think from our profession, it's about seeing stuff. Like, this is why the uni life is so limited, because you see very little in terms of real patient experience in uni. Whereas if you're seeing stuff day to day in practice, that's why your knowledge shoots up in pre-reg. And that's the same with social media. You've got cases of really interesting and maybe rare pathology where someone's talking you through their diagnosis, their management of that. It's really interesting to read, and obviously enhances your own knowledge too.
Fantastic, thank you. Anyone else want to chip in on that, JB? Anything to say about social media?
I think the only thing I would add is to only complement what Hamza was saying, that social media, you cannot exist without social media today. The speed at which you can get a message out there, the reach that you can achieve, but most importantly, and ever so much more at the moment, whilst we're in these COVID times, is the humility and personality that you can invest in that to show people truly, you know, what we do in our profession, which is to care, as Brian was saying, and it's pushing that care out. So you've got to have it. You can't not be doing it these days.
Excellent. And actually, that's a nice segue, because on my list of alphabeticals, Mr. Bench, you are up.
Well, thank you very much. So I suppose just by way of introduction, my past is somewhat checkered. So I've been obviously started at the very beginning of my career in multiple practice, stayed in multiple and became a Specsavers franchisee, left there, went into category management for the Dolland & Aitchison, which then became part of Boots Opticians, looked after the contact lens category and the scheme for contact lenses there, then decided I had enough of that with a 6-month-old baby at home, so rather stupidly or courageously decided to resign. Ended up working with Brian amongst other parts of what I was doing at that time as a bit of consultancy within the industry. And then for the last 7 years, I've been at Alcon, and I now head up professional affairs for Alcon in the UK and Ireland, as well as for the last year, having the extreme privilege and honour of being the president of the BCLA.
Thank you very much. That's almost as diverse as me, JB.
It'll be as diverse as you care.
Right, next up, Karen, who's joining us from Canada. Thank you, Karen.
I'm massively confused by your alphabetical order. That's my problem.
I went first name.
It's fine. But it works in terms of the order here, because my story sort of mirrors and follows Jonathan's for quite some part of it. Highly short-sighted, drove me into optometry. Qualified from Cardiff, as did Jonathan. Similar times, I forget who was first. Ended up working at Brian's. I didn't love doing eye tests, I have to say. I think it's okay in this forum to share that it's not always the right thing for everyone. I also didn't love the idea of having my own business. I think that's okay to say as well. I think what's good to share for those that have tuned in and are listening is there are alternatives. So I ended up with some a voluntary year looking after supervision of third year clinics at Aston. So contact lens clinics there, so a bit more around contact lenses. I ended up working for Johnson & Johnson in professional affairs and education for about 9 years. And in the last 5, in an unusual route into it, I've ended up at the research centre over at the University of Waterloo in Canada, so the Centre for Ocular Research and Education, as it now is, where I do a lot of our education initiatives plus some clinical research. So nothing planned out in that career at all. It's sort of one thing led to another. Wide experience. I love optometry. I don't need to see patients other than clinical study participants on a regular basis. And, I think just be aware that there are many choices of your career, even though it's a vocational career and a qualification, many choices that you can choose to take along the way. And that's what will be good to get across today, I think.
Fantastic, thank you. Next on the list, and I wanted to say possibly the person who'd made the biggest jump, but he's not, is Khalid, who's another Northampton resident.
Hi, Keyur, thanks. I'm your typical anisometropic amblyope who went to the optician loads and was patched. So I went into optometry, had a huge amount of respect for my own optician who drove me into it. I enjoyed the course, I enjoyed testing, but I felt that I needed to do more for some reason. I felt that at 21. I think the nice thing about optometry is you qualify really quickly. And sometimes that's great because you have this job to go into, and no one in optometry is unemployed. And so I thought, well, let me just try something else. And what I learned was I actually really like the pathology side of it. So the diabetes, the retinopathy, I liked the neurology. So I ended up applying to med school, and I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do, but I thought it might be ophthalmology. Ended up that I landed in general practice, and I still work about 3 days a week in general practice at the moment, just finishing my exams, and 2 days a week in optometry. So I've got what I'd call a portfolio career. So yeah, I think it's been interesting. I've really enjoyed it. I think medical school was fun. I had it was stressful. Sometimes I look back and thought, is this really worth it? I think I'm in a good place now. I enjoy trying to create relationships with primary eye care and GPs to benefit patients. And I totally agree with Brian. We all do this because we care about patients. We like helping people. So anything that I can contribute in terms of patients, I love systemic disease, the links between the eye. So that's something that I'm working on at the moment. I work in mental health. I work in A&E at times, and I like a bit of dermatology. So that's me.
Fantastic, thank you. So next on our alphabetical list would have been Piyush and Sheena, but they're sitting at the same camera, and it's probably a little bit rude for Piyush to go first. I'm gonna go over to Sheena because actually, Sheena, I don't know if you've had access to the questions. So we just had a question about someone who had tried different pathways within optometry, and was looking at what they could do outside of, I'll read it to you exactly. I would like to ask the panel, apart from the more usual optometric diversion, what extra things they have brought into their working lives to keep it fresh and challenging?
Yeah, so good question for me, I think. So I'm Sheena. I studied at Cardiff. I am an optometrist for about 15 years now, and I've worked in multiples. I've worked with independents and managed practices, but I kind of went into optometry more because of my Indian background, where we needed security and stability and flexibility. But my passion was in psychology. So even though I did optometry, and I do really enjoy it, I always had this passion for the mental health aspects and positivity and psychology and helping people on a different level. So about 8 years ago, on my journey for my own self-development, I actually trained to be a coach and started getting into like a life coach, getting into mindfulness and meditation. And 8 years ago, I set up my well-being company. So I've got a well-being company on the side that does coaching and that sort of thing. And I work in schools, I work in other businesses that aren't optometry related. I work in optometry as well for coaching. So people like pre-regs, I write articles for OT and optician as well. And I also run a health food business. I run a vegan treats business as well. Again, all linked to do with healthy mindset, healthy physical well-being. So yes, quite diverse. So I'm doing optometry 2 days, and then the rest of it, it's coaching and food. So yeah, quite diverse. So you can do something different, absolutely. There's no limitations to what you can do, and the fact that I can merge those things as well into optometry too now, I think it's, yeah, I think everything is possible, doable, and there's no limitations.
So Sheena, quick question to you from me.
Yeah.
So on a day-to-day basis, so when you're, seeing your patients 2 days a week,
Yeah.
how have you been able to bring the well-being side of it into that? Does that make sense in terms of when you're day-to-day?
So when I first started out optometry, I wasn't enjoying it at all. It was the routine, and it was just patient after patient. Maybe I was working with Tesco's, and it was quite, it's quite busy, and I lost my passion for it a little bit. When I started doing the well-being part of it, I actually transformed how I saw optometry and how I saw my patients, and actually working with patients on an individual basis and really being mindful with them, seeing them as a unique individual, and just, separating everything else around me and just focusing one-on-one. It just changed my whole perspective. And now I'm able to just literally engage with that patient on a different level, and my rapport and relationship with them is just completely different than it ever used to be. So yeah, well-being is really important in optometry.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And your not so better half, Piyush?
Again, so like everyone here, I've done lots of different things. So I started on optometry. During my pre-reg year, I actually started organising the CET in Northamptonshire. I don't even remember this now, but I actually took over from Jonathan, doing some CET stuff. And then from there, that led on to LOC work. So really, ever since pre-reg days, I've been involved with the LOC, done some academia stuff. So done clinics at City University, at Anglia, did some at Aston, did some with UK or at City, and that led on to doing WOPEC stuff. So when WOPEC first formed, I was just really lucky. I'd only been qualified for a couple of years, but I just got to know the directors quite well, and just recently just in the lead assessor, and just done a few other projects for WOPEC. And from that, I really enjoyed the kind of teaching aspect. So I set up a company teaching different pre-regs, and especially people that used to come from overseas. There wasn't that much support for them, so they used to have to sit the old style of our PQEs with actually the 10 exams, but there's no support, there's nowhere for them to learn. So I set up a company to try and help them, and just did like personal tuitions, and then the whole circle is we had kids, they're really young, so I actually tried to cut back a lot of it, and it's really nice just like working around the corner and just doing a general just in practice, and actually being able to come home and drop them to school. And just the kind of optometry is really, really lucky in the sense that whatever you want to do, you can do it. So if you want to work in academia, you can. But if you literally just want a 9-to-5 job and have a great home life, you can do that too. That's kind of where I am now.
Sorry about that. A bit of a technical on my part because I pressed the wrong button. So I apologise for that. But thank you. Actually, you said something there which I think will relate to everyone. And I'm just curious how as a group, luck has played a part in where we have got today. So we all got the degrees, right? We all got qualified. But how much would you say that there is that element of luck of meeting the right person, the right, who can inspire you, or maybe be a contact who 3 or 4 years down the line, you're like, well, actually that person came in handy in the politest of ways. Does anyone think there's an element of luck? I feel really lucky. I feel I'm really lucky to have met you guys. You guys have all brought something different to what I do on a daily basis. To make myself better, to keep myself interested in the job. But does anyone have any comments that they'd like to say about just luck?
I think there's a bit of both. So there's definite luck. So if you look at all of us, we've met someone that's helped us somewhere along the way. But you also have to put yourself out there. So I was organising CT my pre-reg year, whereas most people were probably thinking about exams, and I was as well. But every opportunity there was, even if I didn't understand the opportunity, it's just to always put yourself out there, open yourself up, and then luck comes. You have to be open to it too.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I was saying before, my funny career path has not been particularly planned out, but it's a dual thing of being around good people, a bit of luck and chance meetings, chance conversations, but you've got to be able to be out there and working for it. And alongside some good conversations that led from one career choice to another for me, I was already doing like the City University MSc course, putting yourself out there, meeting people, going to meetings. So you kind of make your own luck a little bit, keep going until you find the right thing for you. But there's so many good people around that the more you put yourself out there, the luckier you can probably be.
So my story, Keyur, is probably largely based on luck, actually. So it was quite a nice intro. Once doing my A levels, I didn't know what to apply for. Now, I'd been lucky enough to have good vision. I didn't see the optometrist regularly. I know, bad man. So not knowing what to apply for, a multiple ad came on TV while I was on YouTube, and my mum tapped me on the shoulder and said, "What about optometry?" And I applied for it on a whim. So once getting to university, I worked for a multiple as a shop floor assistant, and realized that, the optometry was definitely where I wanted to go, but it was just finding where you fit into the optometry picture, I think, which is definitely difficult. After studying at Ulster, I moved on to Moorfields in London, which was great. Had my pre-reg year there. And then I was lucky enough to do 2 years after. It's called a residency program. Essentially what it does is it takes an optometrist and diversifies them amongst the clinics. So everything from pediatric, contact lenses, specialist lenses, refractions, low visions, right through to extended role clinics. So this is where you'll get time in urgent care, emergency access cornea, cataracts, injection clinics, diabetic grading clinics. And essentially at the end of that period, you're a fairly well-rounded optometrist, with the idea of then you can specialize in whatever you want. Now that you've got a bit of a flavor of what's in
but you can't refract. But you can't refract.
No, not very well. So after finishing that program with Moorfields London, I really wasn't sure what to do. Luckily enough, they have a branch in Dubai, and that seemed like the next step. So currently I'm working for Moorfields Dubai since October. And that all started from an advert on TV. Has taken me to the Middle East. So yeah.
Thanks. And actually, while you're there, buddy, one of the questions that's popped up was, does anyone have any advice for getting into hospital optometry after pre-reg? So I'll let Zach go first, and then I'll share a story of how I got into hospital work. I don't know who else. Don, you work in hospital. You still do hospital.
Yeah, I've been working in hospital for about 12 years now. So
yeah. So let me get Zach first, just because he's had a flow. Any advice on getting into hospital work, Zach?
I think traditionally hospital roles are seen as quite difficult to get into. But I think it's easier now more than ever before, because if you're doing the likes of MECs or pairs schemes, that's such a good footing to get through the door. I think what I get asked quite a lot from pre-regs from various courses is, what's going to make me stand out during the interview or during the application process? And I think it's just showing that you actually are there for the patients. I know that sounds a bit cliched, but quite often people are telling what qualifications they've done, but it's the individual one. So it's, why do you want to look after that patient? Why will you go the extra step? And I think that's what really makes you stand out, going forward into quite a competitive area of optometry. And
I know you were fortunate enough, lucky enough. You got into Moorfields as pre-reg. when you see other people coming in, if we ignore the interview process, do you know how they were getting in the door? I think is probably how were they responding to adverts? Were they just harassing Dan Ehrlich like I used to do back in the day before he's retired? Was there anything kind of way that you got in that, like, you think people would get into it?
Well, all of NHS optometry jobs are posted on NHS jobs now. So if you do go select the area, type in optometrist and sign up, you will get hit with a plethora of optometry posts available, and the auto orthoptist post, because they haven't got their systems quite worked out. So there's plenty there. To give you an idea of how big hospital optometry is, Moorfields London employs around 190 optometrists. So this is a massively expanding area. And, anyone that really wants to give it a go, there's more than enough jobs out there to try it. And, you can split that. Most people, about 60 to 70% of people in Moorfields work part-time. So they're not, fully employed staff. And that can be a mix between, clinical work outside in the high street or various other, jobs, roles, which is nice.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to head over to you, Don, mainly because you do, the nature of what you do now is something that, some people dream of, being able to make a good living and not necessarily have to worry about sales spectacles, okay? And conversion rates and things of that nature. So what was your story into hospital optometry? How did you transition into hospital optometry?
I started working with Ultralaser, the laser clinic in Birmingham, and then the consultant there, New York consultant Bristol, and then you've heard of New Medica? Yeah. So I started with New Medica at George Eliot Hospital, and I combined my hospital work with doing locum work. I used to work in Northampton with Pierce as well, so that's going back a long way. And then I more or less stopped doing high street work, and then I just focused on hospital work. So I worked mainly in glaucoma initially, and then I decided to do a little bit of medical retina. So then I went on a course and did the intravitreal injection, which I practiced for about 10 weeks. Then I got bored of it. It was very tedious. And then I went back to doing glaucoma, and I've been in glaucoma ever since. So I sort of changed hospital from George Eliot to BMEC. I work at Birmingham and Midland Eye Center, and I work in the complex surgical glaucoma surgical department. So we manage a lot of patients with tubes and things like that. And in my practice, it's mainly a glaucoma practice. So yeah. I mean, it was luck, because it was from one consultant to the other that got me in a way. So yeah. And then, because I, like Karen, I've never really liked doing refraction. Never liked it. And that's why I only do clinical work. I rarely do refraction nowadays.
Okay, so I've let everyone tell their story, and I probably maybe should tell mine. I graduated out of City in '99. I pre-regged for a multiple, went and chased the money. I lived the Indian dream. I was an optometrist, and I was making money. Happy days, but soon realized that I was not enjoying it. So then I took a pay cut to work for a smaller multiple. And the type of work I was doing, I love the people I work with. I just got bored. The cut and dry was I got bored. So then I looked at ways of diversifying, and my little brother had just shipped off to the States. So I thought, okay, let's do this. Let's go to the States. They do more disease. Like Khalid, I like OC disease. It's interesting. For me, it was really interesting. And so I went to the States, and I did a conversion, spent 2 years there, did a residency, loved it. Loved the way that they practice optometry. Okay. I liked the whole medical side of it. But then came home, family reasons, came back. And from the moment I came back, I tried to not get dragged into old habits. I did have bills to pay. I'd also taken on quite a significant US student loan, which I'm still paying. And I had to pay that. I had to make that. Luckily, again, being Indian, living at home is not a problem. You know, my mum's always going to take me home. I could go home now, and my mum would be like, right, what are we going to eat, right? There's not an issue. So I moved home, looked to pay my bills, but I really tried to keep my work in stuff that would keep me interested. Okay, so like Don, I ended up working for a refractive surgery company and did some work for them. Got fired by them, but that's a different story. And just by luck, and this is why I speak about luck, a friend of a friend mentioned that St. Thomas's were looking for someone to cover someone's glaucoma clinic while they were on mat leave. Okay, so because I had the US qualification, and so I had experience, I could do all the glaucoma stuff, I'd had the grounding, I managed to get a 6-month placement within a hospital. And once I did that and I finished that, and then I realized I really like hospital work, but I really like also having a living. So I had to step out from hospital work, and I went to work for independents. And then I did some locum work. Did a few years of that, maintained the glaucoma work for a small community clinic. So, I mean, a good way nowadays of getting into hospital work is because there are more and more community glaucoma schemes who are looking for people to at least start you off and get you into. I see Don raise his head. I'm pretty sure he was going to say something at me, but let me finish, Don. I'll let you say. And it gets you that step in. Once you've got that step in, what you do with it really makes a difference. So if you get yourself a qualification, a glaucoma qualification, you know, one of the college ones, you've then got a little bit more. And then also, usually, you get to know a consultant. And if you know a consultant, they know people. But me and Brian know this well from our practice in Northampton, is if you have a good relationship with the consultant, things tend to flow a little bit easier, rather than if you're just a name at the end of a referral. And then, so we did a few bits and pieces with that. And now, for the last 5 years, Brian, we've been working together. Just nod, you've muted, press the mute bar. Yeah. So for the last 5 years, you know, me and Brian have been working together. And for me, it's pretty much been the perfect balance of clinical as well as the retail element, which we do, and we enjoy doing it. We're in a nice house practice. Patients come to us; they're not walking past the door, and it's a great environment to work in. And so, hospital work, like Zach was saying, you've got to keep plugging away at it. You've got to keep plugging away at it. You've got to look for it. Some of this stuff won't necessarily fall at your feet, and sometimes you've got to make that small interim step. And I'm going to let Don chip in there. What did you have to say, Don?
I'm also the lead for a healthcare provider. I recruit optoms, and I cannot stress the importance of these glaucoma qualifications and IP, especially IP, because there will be more work doing in the community, doing community work. It's something that will expand over the next 3 to 6 months, because as you know, the NHS cannot. We're not seeing a lot of patients, and they are outsourcing a lot of their patients in the community. So it's a really good opportunity. sorry, for optoms to do more clinical work. That's what I wanted to say. So.
No, and I agree with you, Don. I think if someone was to say to me, and I'm fortunate enough to have had the time to take a few qualifications, which is the one qualification that you think is most useful in general practice today, I would say IP.
IP, yeah. I use my IP a lot.
Yeah, that is the one that is going to allow you to manage something that at any other time you would have had to ship off to A&E. Glaucoma is a fantastic qualification to have. It's great. You learn a lot. But at the moment, there's no release on it. And it doesn't look like ophthalmology will release it into optometry practice, not in the UK, like they do in the US. It doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. IP is the one, and you can, from the moment you qualify, you can use it, and you can take it to your patient as a resource. So what I want to do, I actually did create some polls for the patients, for the audience, to stop them falling asleep, and we must have lost a few because the numbers have dropped, but I don't care now. We're going. So we are going to just hit the first poll, and it's just 3 questions. Just give me an idea of who's still here and who hasn't do it. And I'm not going to allow the panelists to vote because I am going to ask them myself. So we're going to run this poll for the next 30 seconds. And the question I want to ask the panel, and you can do this simply by putting your hand up. All right, it's as easy as that. And the first question, did you always want to be an optometrist? Hands up if you always wanted to be an optometrist. Piyush isn't even sure. He's like, maybe I did, I don't know. Brian's a maybe. I can say I wasn't. I didn't know what optometry was. Karen wanted to be an optometrist, so we got 1. Khalid, just a yes. So the people who spent time within optometry practice is definite yes. It was something that fell in my lap, to be honest.
You've got to define this as an age group. When I was 6, I didn't even know what an optom was.
Okay, so when you got to the choice of when you got to career decision making, okay, so let's say secondary school, probably have an idea of where you want to be, right? Brian, I know that's a long time away for you. You're going to have really delved deep into those memory banks. But what would you say? I never can honestly say I never thought, oh man, I'm all about the eyes and I'm all about spectacles. Ever, even probably now to a certain extent. So that's interesting. So let's see, we've got some of the poll answers here, and we've got a good spread of patients here. We've got a couple of academics. That's really cool. I wouldn't if they'd see it. And we have a good spread of people within the profession. So the next question for the panel, because this is one that's interesting. So I just want to see how it compares to a question that I asked within that first poll. And that question is, have you ever thought about leaving the profession? 3, 4, Brian's a no. 4.5-ish. So we're on par with what's coming through with the poll. So the poll was actually about 50%. 50% of people who have taken the time to sit with us today have actually gone, no, this is, have had to think about it. And that is actually why I'm hoping that they've joined this webinar. Is just to see what's available outside of the testing room. So at this next stage, go on, Brian.
Examination room. How long have you been working with me?
Yeah, but everyone has to understand it, right? So I'm just
examination
room. So Brian is really big on communication, language, and how we educate our patients about what we do, so that we don't. I don't want to say dumb it down, because it's not dumbing it down, but how we take away value from what we're doing. And it's interesting because I know Brian's been quiet for about 30 minutes now, and he's probably bursting to shout at me. And outside of the practice, Brian, I know what you do. Probably a lot of our audience know what you do with regards to the lecturing and the presenting. How did you get into that?
It came after MasterChef. I was absolutely petrified with cameras, microphones, and everything else until I kind of hit, I don't know, 12 million on the first MasterChef show. And I suddenly thought, well, it can't be that scary. So I've done a bit of work, and I've been chatting in an old email group with Sarah Morgan. And Sarah had put my name forward to have a chat with the NECLS group, the Northeastern Contact Lens Society, which existed at that time. And in those days, it was a carousel of slides, and it was those projection screens with which you write on. And that's the kind of lecturing we were doing in those days. And I borrowed some slides from Paragon, a guy called Tim, who lent me his slide deck. And I just chewed the fat with 20 people and kind of quite enjoyed it. I kind of moved on there from doing cookery demonstrations. And the thing about doing a cookery demo is you've got fire and a knife, and people listen to you because they know they're going to get hurt if they don't. And it helped you grab attention. And then just migrated up through each of the techs of Windows, and then into the Mac, and then into Keynote, as opposed to PowerPoint boring shit. And so you kind of just put something different onto the table, and people learn better when they remember stuff. So you make it memorable, and it's the only way. And it's the same for the patient in the consulting room during the examination. You are on stage every day with one or two people in that room. Make it memorable.
And the reason I say, and really, it's a good thing to and I'm going to, Karen, I think you're about to say something, and I'll give you 2 seconds. Let me just, I just want to say something about Brian. And we had a joke about this earlier, before we went to broadcast. And Brian is deceptively passionate, considering how long he has been practicing. So, without putting numbers on it, because that would be rude, if you were to take any 2 windows from this box and add the amount of years they've been practicing, Brian will be practicing more than that. All right. So any 2 windows just puts into perspective how long Brian has been in practice. And I'm going to let Karen say what she wanted to say. Then I'm going to come back to you, Brian, because there's a question here which I think will work really well for you, because of all of us, and I say this in the nicest of ways, mate. Of all of us, you've probably seen the biggest shift in the profession, because you've just been within the profession just that little bit longer.
Decades and decades and decades.
So I'm going to mute you, and I'm going to go, Karen, please.
All I was going to add to Brian's comments and journey about getting into presenting, right, as an option if anyone listening is interested in that. My own point of view, just to share that, I am a confirmed introvert and a quiet person. Wouldn't really say boo to a goose, and Brian can attest to that, I think, at the time.
Unless you've had a few, Karen, and it's Champions League final.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed over time. So that's my point, right? So I have, I think at the time, the perfect personality to be one-on-one in a small, dark, quiet room with a patient and talk to them and do that, right? So on paper, I am that person. I fell into the J&J role by starting to the interview for my J&J job for the professional affairs position. You had to go and give a presentation. I had never done that in my life. I'm old enough that we didn't have PowerPoint at university particularly. I can remember sitting in Brian's office, putting together slides for this interview for this new job he was helping me with. And I was petrified, and I never had done it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even know if I could communicate to what was then 2 people. So the point of what I just want to get across is you can change. Don't feel pigeonholed that because you've never done something that you can't. It doesn't have to just be extra qualifications. I agree with you for IP, for staying in practice, for sure. But coming away from, if I don't want to be doing testing every day, there are so many other things that you can do. And you know, until you put yourself out there and try, you've got no idea whether you can or you can't, but you might surprise yourself. We've just recently completed a webinar series, and we were talking to 1,200 people. That's not the person that I was 10, 15 years ago before I'd started this journey, but it is now. So, you know, as a small example of one thing, there are many things that are possible. That was it.
Thanks. JB has been very quiet down there in the corner of my screen, and I can see he's making notes. So there must be something that he thinks about. And I want to throw out here, like I said at the beginning, this is my party. I can do what I want. If I want to kick someone out, I will. It doesn't matter. And what I had said was, it's my party, you're my guest. If you have a plug for anything in your regular work, so if Karen wants to plug the core stuff, the website, plug the website, Karen, you know, contact lens, update, and stuff like that, you're more than welcome to. And when me and JB were talking about it earlier, I know JB's got some really insightful stuff with his Alcon hat on and his BCLA president hat on about, because we've had a couple of questions, and it's one to do here. So it says, we had a colleague, one of the audience members asked, given your younger self near the time you graduated, what advice would you give yourself? Now, it's always hard because everyone's in different places at that time. But I think JB can probably give some good insight to that, because he's got some really good, two-headed JB, really, with your two hats on there, buddy, to hide that bald head.
I'll take two-headed over two-faced any day, so thank you for that. Oh, now it's getting brutal. So I just wanted to pick up on one thing that was said earlier, and it was by Piyush, actually, that around luck, and I think luck definitely plays a part, but don't underestimate how you can make your own luck. If you want something badly enough, if you have a dream, if you have a vision, if you have a goal, if you mind yourself to set in that direction, you'll be amazed how things fall into place. And there's a whole load of stuff around synchronicity and serendipity and all this sort of stuff. But actually, you're Sheena, I've listened to you. Do you like that? Yeah. But there's so much that is within your own gift. That you can achieve. And I suppose, let me bring it back around to that beautiful segue that you gave me, Keyur. You're doing a great job, by the way, hosting this. If I was to think back to myself just as I graduated and just as I qualified, I remember just fear washing over me, because I was leaving the confines of a wonderful school of optometry where I've been cared for and looked after, encouraged and nurtured and motivated and given so many different opportunities for which I will be forever grateful. And then I was stepping out into a big wide world where it suddenly got real, and I was asked to be doing things that I didn't think were possible. And how do you get a 90-minute eye examination down to 30? How do you achieve the number of patients you need to see in evidence in a year, which just seems unattainable? But you get through that, and you get through it because you persevere, you apply yourself, and you channel the passion that Brian continues to channel to this day. And then you get into the next phase of your real world, and that horrible moment when you realize you're in practice on your own, with no one in the room next door to go and ask or to bring in, and you realize you've grown up, and that's when you start to learn everything about what you're doing. But if we're not careful, we really run the risk of getting trapped into refracting and just treading a mill. And there was a line from an old DNA advert years ago, which was a sausage in a sausage factory, and no patient ever wants to feel like that. I never understood that phrase, by the way. Never heard it anywhere else but on that advert. But it's so true that it can put out the fire within us, the fire that is lit when we're undergraduates, the fire that is, given more oxygen when we're doing our pre-regs, and then that's burning brightly. And our patients tell us that, because when we're newly qualified, they never get treated like that, by anybody else, because they just know they can feel it coming off us. And it's for that reason that we put into place the
need to use better
deodorant,
JB, if they can feel it coming off.
Maybe. But it's channeling that moment of hoping that we don't lose that fire, that we put into place the scholarship program deliberately to give, and forgive the pun, newly qualified practitioners many different lenses through which they can view their future, whether it be research, academia, whether it be owning a practice, whether it be going into hospital, whether it be coming into professional affairs and professional services, we're not on the industry side, whether it be changing career completely because it gives you the insight that that's the right thing to do. Whatever it does, we just want to put those lenses up so that people can see the choices that continue to lay before them.
Thanks, JB. And anything apart from the Alcon stuff, anything from the BCLA with regards to the younger guys and things like that?
So with the BCLA, the BCLA is something that I think is misunderstood by so many. I remember when I went to my first BCLA in 2006, I remember standing at the bar with Karen till late one evening talking about what our futures were going to be, what the careers we were going to follow. I remember Brian introducing me to loads of different people. I remember standing next to people in corridors that I thought were just like the celebs of our world, and realizing that they're just like us, so normal, so natural. And they're the opportunities that the BCLA give you to actually speak and understand from those who you think you can't get to, or you couldn't then. Hamza will argue this brilliantly because social media has unlocked the world. But at that time, it didn't really exist in the same way. And that's what we want to do with the BCLA, is just put people in touch with people, put people in a space together where they can share their passions, explore what they know, and find like-minded people to act as mentors. And I know that Indy's on the line. He's the next president for the BCLA. He's been an amazing mentor to me through my career, as you know, Keith, another previous president. There's so many great people who are just willing to help us all.
Thanks, JB. I've just realized, because I'm a bit rubbish with the tech. Sorry, Ken, I will get to you. Khalid said his hand up for like 10 minutes, and I've kind of ignored him because I thought it was Brian, and I thought Brian had said what he wanted to say, and then not put his hand up. And I know Khalid has to head off, and so Khalid, I know you have something to say, buddy, and I know you are very, you know, you've made a big step. You've taken a pretty much as big a step as you can. And so what did you have to say is probably the easiest way of putting it.
Yeah, first, Keyur, you know, this has been excellent. And I'm really sorry. I've actually got to do some out of hours work, and I'm heading off back to work. So that, on that point, what I wanted to say was that, you know, to people who often ask me, why did you leave? I say, I didn't actually leave. And I think that once you do your pre-reg year, the beautiful thing about optometry is that you don't actually have to leave. It's so flexible that you can just carry on. And you know, I know people who are actors and are optometrists. I know people in the finance world in Canary Wharf and HSBC who are optometrists. And I think the main takeaway point I want everyone to have listening is that when I went to my medical school interview, the consultant, I remember, the admissions tutor said to me, "What can you offer this course? Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I know how to take a history. I examine patients. I see patients all the time, and you know, we make differential diagnosis. We treat patients. We follow patients up. I know about pathology." And he said, "Wow, that's fantastic." So, you know, in any career, whether it be medicine, whether it be in the finance industry, if you do want to venture out, don't be scared. You will be respected, and people will appreciate what you do. On the wards in the hospital, I was the eye guy, you know, and people were really interested in optometry, and I taught a lot of the doctors how to use the ophthalmoscope, and a lot of doctors how to do slit lamp. But yeah, don't think that this is the only, you know, the optometry sector is just limited to clinical work. It's definitely not. And good luck with anything that you do.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate you taking the time. The fact I should have realised you had to go back to work. You've still got your safety specs on.
I think it's it's COVID. It's COVID, and there's a bit of a shortage in out of hours, so I've volunteered to help out.
Fantastic, and thank you very much for joining. And we'll chat later, dude.
Take care.
Take care. So I've got a couple of questions from the audience, and one is specifically for Hamza, and I did see it. I don't know if someone's answered it privately. No, Brian answered it privately, but the question was for Hamza with regards to, I'll read it out. I'm keen to capture interesting photos of various types of ocular pathology. Is there any attachments you can add onto a smartphone to use in this way? You need to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
All right. Everyone asks me, I guess a lot. And it's like, is there any attachment? It's not so much the attachment, but understanding how to take photography in the first place. I think Zach will back me up on this. Is that the attachment I use cost me £5 off Amazon. It wasn't anything special. Purely just to hold my phone in place. And the rest comes down to how you know how to use a camera, basically. because
And,
it's
and
not.
me and Hamza are working on something for Instagram for that.
Yeah,
So
when-
I just put our own plug in there as well.
But yeah, it's about knowing how to use the camera app as well. So when you're using your camera app, it's like locking your exposure, locking your focus so that you can focus with your slit lamp on that fine detail, knowing how to increase, decrease the exposure depending on where it is. So like corneal opacity is one of them really fine, tricky things that you need to. So like one of the shots that I took was vortex keratopathy. It's something that's actually very, very hard to capture well with, at least not without a fancy digital hog strat slit lamp at least. But
your tobacco dust post was super impressive a few days ago as well. I don't know how you caught that on a phone.
yeah. To be fair, I was celebrating in front of the patient. I was like, yeah, now we need to go to A&E. So it's like, yeah, sorry about that. But no, to be fair, yeah, because actually patients are quite interested as well. And as a learning tool, especially when it comes to the anterior eye stuff, like fundus pictures are great. We can show patients. But actually, when I talk to like the amount of people that come in with foreign bodies, so like your welders and stuff, like, yeah, this is what's attached to the front of your eye right now kind of situation. That's what we need to do. But it comes to understanding how to use a camera. And obviously, like I said, me and Kay are working on something. And like I said, it'll explain this in a lot more detail because it's not simple as put the attachment on, put your camera on and take a picture, because you're going to end up with some pretty crappy shots. Like the pictures I take on my page, I've been shooting these pictures for 4 years now. And even now I still learn how to fine tweak it. Yeah, like Zach said, the tobacco dust post is what I've been trying to capture for God knows how long, even down to like flaring cells in the anterior chamber. But it comes with practice. And like I said, in this day and age of where we might move to a lot more to like teleophthalmology, being able to capture stuff like this that we can show a consultant who may be remote is going to be a lot more important going on as well.
I find it.
Go on.
I find it particularly useful for patient education. So the bane of all of our lives as optometrists is dry eye. You know, I'm sure everyone will agree. One of the ophthalmologists I worked with before said, if it wasn't for dry eye, we would have cured everything else. Every other eye disease would be cured. And it's probably true. But if we take something like my meibomian gland dysfunction, I love to, get a ×25 photograph of blocked glands or, debris in the tears and show them. And you can bring them back to reassess and take photos again and then congratulate them on how well they're doing, because they can see a result of their hard work that they're doing at home, which you just don't quite get without that visual representation for a lot of patients, I think.
Yeah. Like I got asked by Great Ormond Street Hospital in London for my cells and flare video for their patient education, because they do a lot with juvenile arthritis patients who suffer with this. So they're making it as part of a patient video to educate patients as well. So I think it's really useful being able to take pictures like this to show patients, definitely.
I know. So Brian, if we go down into the practice, into the basement. So we have a basement. Brian has stacks and stacks of slides or photographs, carousel slides that have been taken. One day, Hamza, come up to the practice. Definitely. And you can hide in the basement and just geek out. I was like, you just sit there looking at these slides thinking, wow. Sorry?
You invited me to your basement because that just sounds weird, man.
Brian's basement, mate.
It's my basement. That's even weirder.
Brian's basement. So interestingly, you speak about tech, and Hamza, I think Hamza's been reading the questions because you give me a perfect segue into actually we can probably answer two questions here in one here. And initially it was pointed at Brian, and so Brian did Brian's opinion then, and it goes, and the question is, where do you see teleoptometry entering the UK, particularly given where we are today with the changes we face? And then actually there was a question we had earlier from a friend of ours, and how that leads to is, how do we balance pushing the envelope of what we can do professionally, but making sure we don't work outside our level of competence? So this actually is a good question for Brian, because Brian's seen the changes in tech. And, we've gone from just ophthalmoscopes to ultra wide field imaging, OCT. So what do you think, Brian, about telemed and pushing the boundaries, pushing the envelope?
Telemed's absolutely going to be part of the future following these last 6 weeks or so. The challenge is how you get that telemed accessible to a patient. I've had 3 patients today send me images of their eyes, and the images have been pretty shit until we've sat down with them for a couple of minutes and said, okay, turn the flash on, open your lid, get somebody else to take the photo. Trying to do a selfie doesn't work. There's a kind of 100 reasons why. Keyur and I work closely with the AOS guys, and they've got a very clever app, which I was talking to the guy in the questions about how to sort of then get the app to then send it to us and we can analyze and grade it, et cetera, et cetera. But as Hamza said earlier, some people just can't see how to take a photo. They can't see the fact that the dishes in the sink are in the background of a lovely portrait they're taking. They just don't have this kind of image in their own mind's eye. And I think it's really tough to give that to everybody. So getting a picture from a patient, which is where it's got to be to a degree, is going to be a challenge. Us sending a great image to a consultant, that's a given. That should have been happening years ago. We've done slit lamp imagery probably 20, 25 years, whatever, starting off early days and then going on forward. And it was originally a real challenge to get it down to the hospital consultants. It's getting easier and easier, and hospitals have opened their firewalls to a degree to allow us to send images. So it's got to improve from here. So yeah, it'll never go away. We can't lose it, and so it's embrace it.
Piyush, Sheena, anything you got, because you guys are in a slightly different setting from your day-to-day setting. How are you guys finding telemedicine working for you guys within your, the VE model that you're in at the moment?
It's quite hard, right? So when you work for multiple, your hands are tied with certain things. It's definitely something that we need to look at. Even in terms of like the LOC hub, things are going to change. So the world that we're living in now is changing. So in a kind of way, it's pushing things, it's pushing us in practice. So everything that we've been discussing is pushing us to make those changes.
Okay, that's fine. Don, anything to say about telemed?
Yeah, I mean, so with my practice, I've been doing it since about 2016 started. I work with about 8 consultants. So there's a network of us, the private consultants. So we cross-refer patients, but we also cross-refer. We exchange images a lot. So that's how my practice. That's how it works. It's all about imaging and things like that. So it's very important. And like Brian said, I think it will obviously that's how it's going to be over the next probably couple of years.
I think there's only one thing that I just want to say. I mean, telemed is not new. Telemed, Don mentioned earlier New Medica in East of London, the Evolutio. There are all these systems actually running telemed. Telemed has been around for at least a decade, I would say. What COVID has brought about is that it's being forced down people's throats, essentially. It's like people who, ophthalmology is, I would say, a bit of a, it's like a tanker, right? They're slow to turn and they're slow to change. But COVID has come along like a tsunami, and ophthalmology has gone, we need to change what we do because we can't have people sitting in the hospital. So how can we change it? And so telemed has, this is the opportunity, really. I mean, if I had shares in a telemed company, I'd be licking my lips at COVID. You just feel like, this is it. This is how we're gonna really show how good our product is, and get people who 3 months ago wouldn't even have thought about it to look at it, because there are so many advantages to telemed. Optometry can do so much, and you can release the burden from ophthalmology purely by doing a lot of the decision making at point of entry, and if you need that advice from people more experienced, people more qualified, it's just a quick email. It's instant, and I think it's quite interesting. The point about pushing boundaries is an interesting one. Working with our scope, I know the GOC talks a lot about scope, and when you redo IP, they like you to say, where is your scope of practice? Where do you, what do you see yourself specializing in? But and it's a shame Khalid has gone, because sometimes if you don't push the envelope, you won't learn and you won't progress. And that's my opinion. And you can push the boundaries if you do it safely. So, like I said, in Northampton, me and Brian have a really good relationship with our consultants, and we can email them and say, look, this is what we're thinking of doing. This is, and they will quite happily say, good job, go with that. Or maybe I would do something slightly different, or please do not touch that. You totally overstepped it. Send them in. Well, I think part of learning is pushing yourself and pushing the boundaries. I think as optometrists, what we have to do, though, is make sure we are doing it in the patient's best interest, not as an experiment. So as long as you do things safely, as long as you're following guidelines and looking at where you are, I think it's good to push the boundaries. Otherwise, we won't go forward. We will just end up waiting for someone else to push the boundary, waiting 10 years for someone to say, well, it's okay for you to do it that way, and then playing catch up. And by the time we get to catch up stage, that information will be gone. That information will be dated. Who looks at textbooks anymore? They're dated at a point of print, pretty much, with regards to some of the management stuff. So I hope that's answered that question for you. I am quite aware of the time, and I realized that it is just dragging on. I'm just going to quickly push out the second poll just to wake people up a little bit. And actually, I didn't realize I could do that. So I've just shared the results of poll 1, and that'll just pop up there for a little bit. People have a quick look. And then if I close that and do that one, and all right, so I don't know how to pull up poll 2. That's interesting, isn't it? That's fine. Anyway, right. So move on from that. I'll figure out how to do that in the background while we do this. I'm keen not to overrun, because I know people do have lives and no one wants to hear me babbling on. And the interesting question here, this is because we've got a couple of presidents and ex-presidents. We have many professional organizations. How useful have you found these organizations in either progressing your career or by supporting your current role? Could you tell us which ones are worth their weight in fees? JV, go, man. I'll throw that one at you.
The BCLA for one has to be, let's be honest about this, it's where your passion in optometry lies. So there are absolutely a plethora of different associations and societies, and they will be the ones who will help you progress your career, excite you, and be the best practitioner that you can be for your patients, because we do best when we follow and develop the skills that we love and in areas that we love the most. So the answer is you need to know where you have a passion, and that's the one to be part of. But I would argue the case for you need to be part of it. So don't be apathetic and think that you'll be able to access and find that stuff, because it's the people within that organization, to your previous discussion, that will then encourage you, motivate you, and take you to the edge of your comfort zone. And it's there that you do the best developing. It's there that you find the new you and you become the best practitioner.
Thank you. So I find myself, and I'm going to actually ask some of the two babies of the group. Have you done that? Have you looked at what organizations you're part of? Have you, everyone, and this is something that for me, I don't know if anyone else thought about this, and I thought about this. I thought when I was at uni, no one told me I didn't have to be a member of the college. I just assumed that everyone was a member of the college. And I thought, well, you have to be a member of the college, don't you? Now, admittedly, I was not the most proactive at uni. And I did do a bit of following in terms of what I did and what I didn't do. And that's not dig at the college. I think the college has a lot of positives. There have been times where I've been really, really annoyed at the college, and I felt that they've not pulled their weight. Okay, and I'm lucky enough to be in conversation with members of the college, and we've been very honest. But there've been lots of times that the college has been great. But what JB was saying is that you have to look at what you want and what they are giving you, rather than just following. If you like contact lenses, BCLA. Why not? Why wouldn't you? You know, be BCLA. I like sports vision, so I'm a member of the Sports Vision Association. Whilst I was in the States, I spent a lot of time. I really like optic disease, so I'm a member of the American Academy. You know, there are lots of associations, and I'm glad I gave that to JB, because that was a fantastic answer. Hamza, Zach, what if you want to share? I don't want to put anyone on the spot too much.
Yeah, so I'm a member of the BCLA. Moving to Dubai has changed things a little bit with regards to so the college, I'm not a member at the minute, because I can get my CET through the BCLA quite easily. They've got some excellent webinars, excellent speakers. But I think we're talking about the ones that you pay for. There is quite a lot online that you don't need to pay for. So, you know, at the minute, the amount of webinars and knowledge that's going around on Facebook, Instagram, you know, posts, there's a plethora of, you know, really, really smart people talking for free at the minute as well. So, you know, as you said at the start, you know, you do join sometimes things because everyone else seems to be joining them.
Sorry, Jack, are you Indian? Are you Indian in disguise?
Yes.
Looking for the free, making sure, because it's free, why not take advantage of it?
Yeah, well, there's lots of students in pre-regs, and you know, it's tough enough just coming out of that. And I done so much of my learning on YouTube, and through, you know, posts like Hamza's. You know, there's the eye doctor's a very, very good one as well for anyone that wants to learn.
Optometry. Optometry.
But there's as many out there. And Hamza, can you think of any other good ones off the top of your head?
There's so many. A lot of the American ones are quite good, but you just gotta take a look, because compared to when we first started out, there is a hell of a lot more than when it was. Like, I probably follow about 500 accounts, which are purely optometry based, and you learn so much from them. But yeah, eye doctor as a starting point, eye doctor is probably one of the best out there, if not the best by far. And optometry up close as well, don't worry. But from an organization point of view,
just doing the plugs now, are we?
We're doing plugs now. From an organization point of view, like, obviously my work pays for my college membership. Would I still be a member of the college if I didn't get it paid for? It's questionable. Especially considering some decisions sometimes, like you said, you fall out with them a little bit sometimes. You get frustrated with them sometimes. So, yeah, this year would have been questionable. But, yeah, other times it is good. Yeah, I find the diploma ceremony is a bit of fun. But then when you stop your membership and they say, can you send us a certificate back, it's quite funny as well. But at the same time, I have AOP membership as well, partly for the insurance. And
the lounges. Don't forget the lounges you get.
Oh yeah, lounges too.
Yeah.
And the OT articles are good as well, to be fair. It's nice to have a read of that through it.
I think what would be quite interesting is, if we're talking about the big organizations, is CET points. Because I know quite a lot of people go to the big events to get these CET points. Because, you know, I take a trip back. I was at 100% optical there. And we can't do that anymore. So it's going to be a lot more difficult for people to, you know, stay qualified. And it'd be quite interesting to see what happens with that going forward.
That's a really good segue into one of the other questions that's come up, Zach, about is there any memberships events, we've talked about memberships, that you think are important for newly qualified to be involved in? You know what, Karen, you've been really quiet. And I know because you travel a lot, because you come back and part of your lecturing and you get to see worldwide events. What would you say your opinion are on events and conferences and things like that?
So, I mean, I'm heavily biased towards anterior eye and contact lenses. So for the events that I'm going to, that said, the college conference in the UK, my most recent last experience, has absolutely been revived. The American Academy, absolutely fascinating conference to go to if you get the opportunity to do so. I don't think I've ever been quite so overwhelmed of being surrounded by like-minded, interested, and young professionals who are wanting to be a part of the profession and being encouraged to do learning and research in practice that I've ever seen at the Academy of Optometry. So for me, if that opportunity arises for anyone, I would highly recommend that. In terms of contact lenses, BCLA absolutely still stands up there. And then you've got other conferences out there that, sort of NCC, so the more European-based, the Dutch-based conferences as well. But I come back to the exact answer that Jonathan gave a little while back in terms of, what should you be doing and joining? And the first part of that answer is what I was going to say earlier as well, but it's find the thing that you want to do. So whether that's a clinical based bit, whether it's front of eye, anterior, contact lenses, retina, glaucoma, if it's a business minded model, if it's patient care, if it's a psychology, whatever it is, find the thing that lights you up and then go pursue that. And I think that's where you find your expertise, you find your learning, you find your continued passion to be able to do it. So for me, I didn't love eye testing, but it was always going to be contact lenses, and that was absolutely unshakable. And I, as much as there was bits of luck along the way, I followed that route into, greater and greater contact lens work till I got to a point that was working really well for me. So choose the thing that works, and then go find the right conferences and interactions.
I'm just going to throw this in there, and then then I'm going to let Piyush talk. Actually, go Piyush. You go first, and I'll throw in what I was going to say because you're probably relevant to this. Go.
All I was going to say is obviously going to all these conferences and obviously learning and academia is so important, but the networking is really, really important. So you find what you're interested in, you then meet like-minded people. And something that Jonathan said as well is that things are not as scary as they seem. That could be people, so all these celebrities, that could be these opportunities, and it's not as bad as it actually is until you get in there. So it's just an amazing, I think all of the opportunities I've had have all stemmed from networking. So you meet so many people and just speak to people, and that's where things progress.
And actually, I'm just going to say that I think optometry students in the UK don't have the same idea of what conferences are like for optometry students in the US. Having been in the US, I know what it's like. And they are very heavily encouraged to attend these national conferences. And from you're going to learn pretty much a lot at whichever conference you go to. But to what Piyush was saying about the networking is amazing. It's how you meet people, but also it's actually quite fun. It's not just sitting in a room listening to someone. If you go to a big conference, there's usually a party. There's usually like a 66-year-old drunk bloke stumbling around, with his, Ortho K Rocks t-shirt on, giving everyone hugs and stuff like that. And they're just great events. And you'd be surprised how many CE you can click off at one point as well. If you're going just for the CE, you'll smash out most of your CE in 2 days to do that. Right. So do you have something going, Hamza? Are you putting your hand up?
You say especially the opportunities I've had, I'm fairly new to my career in terms of just been a couple of years in, but no way would have had the opportunities that I have today already if it wasn't through networking and meeting the people that I've already met through my career. Yeah, a lot of it's my own luck and partly through social media to be recognized for it, but at the same time to meet these people and then start projects with these people and be introduced to another set of people is giving me so many opportunities so early on in my career I never imagined of at this point, to be honest.
Cool. Right. So we are almost done because it's an hour and a half. And I'll be serious, I did not think I was going to drag it out this long. So I really thank everyone who's stuck on. I thank the panel for sticking it out with me and really helping me out. But just got a couple of quick fire questions. It's going to go 30 seconds. And first person to put their hand up gets to answer it. And this question's been up for a while. I'm just trying to figure out how to feed it in. And the member has said, I enjoy testing in the retail side, but I'm fed up with the way companies push and try to manipulate you into doing more and more and less recognition. Is this just the way it is? I'm going to answer first, and then I'm going to ask all the panel what they think, and we've got like 10 seconds. Just fire it out. Don't think about it too much. My answer is, it could be the way it is if you let it be the way it is, which is a bit of an answer, non-answer. There are so many opportunities within the profession. If you don't like working for someone because of what they're putting you in, move on, find something else. That's what I have to say. Anyone else to add to that? Go, Gina.
Yeah, so we've had that our entire optometric careers where we've had that same issue, and all I can say is communicate, because if you don't communicate with your manager or the person above, it's going to fester in you, it's going to lead to all these issues. So just communicate and don't have fear of just taking it out of the shop floor, going for a coffee, expressing your feelings and trying to just come up with some sort of conclusion. Don't be afraid to do that. It's not manager against the Optom battle, it's not company against Optom battle. You've got to just communicate and just express what you're thinking to move forward.
Anyone else? So this is, go on, Piyush.
Just a really quick, so there's been quite a few surveys that have been done on this, and I said, what do employees value the most? There's money was on there, job security, so many other things. The single biggest thing, which is recognition for the work that they do. And it's quite hard to speak, if you feel like that, speak to your manager, speak to whoever it is, because they might not know that. They may just take for granted what you do, so actually communicate with them.
Fantastic, thank you. And there's one other question, just going to be a yes or no, really. I'm just curious. And then there's a question here about pre-reg, which I don't know if we can get into it, because I don't think enough of us are at high enough levels to answer it. So I apologize for the young lady who's asked about pre-reg period. I really don't know, and it's too in-depth for this. But here we go. Good one to finish with before I launch the last poll. Does anyone feel they were missold optometry as an undergrad?
No.
I don't feel I've missold it. I feel that maybe I didn't quite understand it in terms of what really happened. But I don't think I was missold optometry.
Optometry. But you make your own choices along the way and create your own path.
Yeah, I think it's just taking small steps in the right direction. With the amount of higher qualifications there are out there, pediatrics, contact lenses, medical retina, glaucoma, it's just trying everything out to see what fits for you. I think, and I think the universities need to show something like what we've got here of just how far optometry can take you. Across the world, different jobs, different opportunities, and it's not just become a lecturer or sit in an examination room. There's so much more out there that you can do.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Zach. Did you want to say something, Karen? No? Okay, so I'm just going to launch this last poll. Brian, go on, mate.
Just one thing, because an awful lot of the choices that exist now didn't exist when I was qualified and when I became qualified. Never lose track of the core of what we do, which is giving people vision just by simple refraction or contact lens, whatever it might be. Our job is to enable people to see as well as diagnose all the medicals. And if you can't get enjoyment out of making people smile by making them see, that's a sad thing.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Brian. That is probably the best way to end this. I'm going to launch the last poll. It's just a little bit of feedback. And it's just for the audience, just to give me an idea of whether it was useful, whether anyone actually enjoyed it, whether they didn't enjoy it, whether they got a bit bored. Just going to give it 30 seconds to run, and pretty positive, I'd like to say, which is good. I'll take that. I'd like to thank the panelists who are my friends and have taken their own time to do this. I don't think I said, but we didn't get any sponsors for this. We didn't do anything. We've done it off of our own back, just because we need to share. As a profession, we will only grow if we share what we can do and what we can offer each other. So I applaud you. I thank you all very much. I'm going to end the poll there, and I'm going to publish it, if I can publish it, which is, I'd say, pretty positive. A couple of not helpful, but can't help everyone. Someone told me earlier, can't, but that's the way it is. So take care, everyone. Be safe. I wish you all the best, and hopefully we will see you guys at a conference somewhere. Look us up. Like I was saying, just quickly. Karen, go for it. Plug the website.
So you want to follow on social media Core Eye News. That's where we put all our professional stuff. And right now for COVID and contact lenses, covideyefacts.org has everything in there, from really new peer-reviewed paper, infographics for patients around contact lenses, and in really practical advice for practitioners to read through as well. Peer-reviewed evidence research, covideyefacts.org. I'm done.
Thank you very much.
That's amazing.
Hands up.
Huh? What? Sorry.
Do your plug, man.
Oh, follow Crazy Up Top on Instagram.
JB?
I've done mine. I think it'd be rude to do it all over again.
Sheena?
Follow Inspiring Success for everything to do with well-being, and lots of free courses on there as well, and on Instagram and Facebook, Sheena's Inspiring Success, and pure and raw goodies for vegan treats. Thank you.
Fantastic. Piyush, got anything to say, buddy?
Just follow those, yeah?
Follow me.
Follow the missus.
Yeah.
Zach?
The IG Optoms, the social media account. Anything, questions about Dubai or hospitals or Murfields, feel free to drop me a message if anyone needs.
Fantastic. Thank you. Don?
Can follow me on LinkedIn.
Yep. You post some beautiful images, dude. You do post some beautiful images.
Thank you.
And Brian, finally, let's go, man. Let's post it. Let's blast the practice out. Let's just make it, let everyone know what the practice is about. You have to unmute yourself, dude.
Okay. BT Optom and TKS optometrists, just go and see what we're doing and shout and know. And more importantly, come and visit us. That is really important. We love initiating students into the whole profession. So come down and see us.
Cool. Thank you all very much. I'm Keyur. I am the Optomer Geek. And I wish you guys all the best. Take care. And I'm going to end this now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Keyur. Thanks all.
Bye.
Thank you.
Yeah.